They told Elena she wasn't in the will. Her stepfather, Marcus, didn't even look up from the mahogany desk when he said it. He just slid a single sheet of paper across the wood, a formal eviction notice for the guest house she'd lived in for 10 years. But as Elena reached for the paper, she noticed the family lawyer, Mr. Thorne, staring fixedly at the floor. His knuckles were white, gripping a weathered, leather-bound bank ledger that wasn't part of the official probate pile. He knew something the paperwork didn't say, and Marcus knew he knew. Elena walked out of the main house, her boots crunching on the gravel of an estate that no longer belonged to her bloodline. Beside her, Cooper, an aging golden retriever with graying fur around his muzzle, trotted with a slight limp. He was the only thing her mother had truly left her, or so it seemed. The financial reality hit like a physical weight. Elena pulled her phone from her pocket, looking at the banking app. Current balance, $412.64. Outstanding debt, $8,400 in student loans, and a $1,200 veterinarian bill for Cooper's hip dysplasia. Marcus had cut off her stipend the day after the funeral. He claimed the estate was illiquid, tied up in complex probate filings that would take years to settle. He had already listed the main house for $4.2 million. Elena looked at the eviction notice again. She had 48 hours. No savings, no safety net. Just a dog who needed medicine she couldn't afford, and a stepfather who had spent 3 years slowly isolating her mother from the rest of the family. As Elena began packing her meager belongings into her rusted sedan, Mr. Thorne, the lawyer, approached the guest house. He looked nervous, glancing back toward the main villa, where Marcus was likely watching from the balcony. "Elena," Thorne whispered, his voice tight. "Your mother, she knew Marcus was efficient with finances. She left a codicil. It's not money. It's not the house." He handed her a rusted iron key and a property deed for a non-habitable utility plot located on the far northern edge of the county, a swampy, overgrown patch of land that had been in the family for 80 years. "It's worthless, Elena," Thorne said, his voice devoid of hope. "Tax records show it as an abandoned drainage site. Marcus didn't even fight for it. He laughed when he saw the assessment. It's valued at maybe $5,000, and the back taxes are nearly $3,000. Elena looked at the deed. It was a burden, not a gift, another bill to pay. But with no other options, and Marcus threatening to call the sheriff by Monday, she loaded Cooper into the car and drove toward the only thing left in her name. The plot was 3 hours away, hidden behind a rotted chain-link fence. Cooper immediately began sniffing at a concrete slab hidden under layers of dead leaves and brambles. Elena sat on the bumper of her car, looking at the probate documents Thorne had slipped inside the envelope. Something felt wrong. The date on the utility plot transfer was signed only 3 days before her mother's sudden decline. The signature was shaky, but the notary was someone Elena didn't recognize, a name that didn't appear on any other estate documents. The tax record indicated the plot had a level 4 security rating from 1962. Why would a drainage site need a security rating? Cooper began barking, a sharp, insistent sound. He was scratching at the edge of the concrete slab. Elena moved the brush away, revealing a heavy circular steel hatch. It wasn't a drainage pipe. It was a decommissioned Cold War-era fallout shelter. The hatch groaned as Elena pried it open. With a flashlight in one hand and Cooper's collar in the other, she descended the rusted ladder. The air was stale but dry. The bunker was small, a reinforced concrete room with a single desk, a bunk, and a wall of filing cabinets. But it wasn't empty. On the desk sat a heavy, sealed plastic container. Inside was a legal-sized ledger and a thick stack of bank statements, not from her mother's current accounts, but from an offshore trust labeled the E. Vance Educational Endowment. Elena flipped through the ledger. Her heart stopped. Entry 1, $2.1 million transfer, 2018. Entry 2, $1.8 million transfer, 2019. The dates aligned perfectly with losses Marcus had reported in the family business, losses he had used to justify why there was no money left for her mother's specialized medical care. The ledger wasn't just a record of money, it was a diary of theft. Her mother had found out. She had been documenting Marcus's embezzlement for years, hiding the proof in the one place he considered worthless. The heavy iron hatch above groaned, partially blocking the late afternoon sun. Elena froze, her fingers still tracing the jagged ink of her mother's last entries.
Rhythmic crunch of gravel announced Marcus's arrival. He wasn't alone. The heavy, synchronized footfalls suggested he'd brought the security detail he'd recently put on the estate's payroll, using Elena's stolen inheritance to fund her own intimidation. "Elena," Marcus's voice drifted down, unnervingly calm, filtered through the rust and concrete. "I know Thorne spoke to you. He has a habit of bleeding heart sentimentality. It's a professional liability." Beside her, Cooper let out a low, vibrating growl, his hackles rising. Elena shoved the ledger into the waistband of her jeans, the cold plastic of the container biting into her skin. "The land is a swamp, Elena," Marcus continued, his shadow stretching long across the bunker floor. "It's a liability, environmental liens, back taxes, a sinkhole for whatever little cash you have left. I'm prepared to offer you a way out, $20,000, cash, right now. You hand over whatever keepsakes you found down there, sign a quick claim deed, and you can get that dog the surgery he needs." Elena looked at the ledger. $20,000 was a drop of water in the desert compared to the $4 million Marcus had siphoned away while her mother lay dying. "Why are you here, Marcus?" Elena called out, her voice echoing. "If it's just a swamp, why drive 3 hours to find me?" The silence that followed was heavy, pressurized. Then the sound of a heavy boot struck the top rung of the ladder. "Because some things are better left buried," Marcus snapped, the mask of the grieving stepfather finally slipping. "You're making this a legal matter, Elena, and I have the best lawyers the estate's money can buy. You have a dog that needs a vet and $400 in your bank account. You won't last a week in probate court. Give me the files, or I'll ensure the sheriff meets you at the gate for trespassing on corporate land, held in a subsidiary you don't own." Elena backed against the rusted filing cabinet, her fingers trembling as she pulled the final document from the hidden ledger. It wasn't just a bank statement. It was a medical directive, signed by her mother, but witnessed by the same unknown notary who had signed the worthless deed. "You didn't just steal the money, Marcus," Elena said, her voice catching as she read the handwritten marginalia. "You changed the medication schedule. You told the hospice nurses she was refusing the heart stabilizers." The truth reframed every memory from Act 1. Elena remembered her mother's sudden, inexplicable confusion in those final weeks, the way she would reach for her water glass with shaking hands, whispering that the bitterness wouldn't go away. It wasn't the disease, it was Marcus, systematically inducing a natural failure to ensure the probate process started before the new offshore trust could be audited. "She knew," Elena whispered, looking at a small, tucked-away Polaroid of her mother sitting in this very bunker, holding the ledger. "She knew you were killing her. She spent her last coherent days making sure you'd never find the proof."
Marcus's face contorted, the mask of the grieving husband shattering into something jagged and predatory. He lunged for the paper, but Cooper, sensing the shift in gravity, snapped his jaws inches from Marcus's hand, a low, guttural warning that echoed off the reinforced walls. The power dynamic shifted instantly. Marcus wasn't looking at a poor girl anymore. He was looking at the woman who held the evidence of a capital crime. The underground vault had become a vault of his own making. Elena didn't stay in the dark. She waited until the county sheriff, her mother's cousin, arrived, his sirens cutting through the silence of the swamp. The legal fallout was surgical. Marcus was taken into custody, not for trespassing, but on a preliminary charge of financial elder abuse and suspicion of medical tampering. The worthless utility plot was frozen as a crime scene, preventing Marcus's lawyers from touching the assets. Elena didn't suddenly become a billionaire in a montage of shopping sprees. The process of clawing back $4 million from offshore accounts took 3 years of grinding litigation. She stayed in the guest house, but this time she held the deed. She used the first $50,000 of the recovered funds to pay for Cooper's hip replacement and a specialized rehabilitation center. She grew older, quieter, and far more observant. She became a woman who understood that value is often a legal fiction created by people with something to hide. Justice was served, mostly, but during the final audit of Marcus's accounts, the forensic accountants found a recurring monthly payment of $500 sent to an anonymous P.O. box in a small town 3 states over.